Shed loads of them here. Let's share them out. So sorry for your loss. Need a mortgage?" Everyone laughed. Marnie managed a wobbly smile. Once upon a time she'd been one of them, a shark. At weddings and birthday parties, she'd moved amongst the guests, smiling, chatting, asking general-sounding questions. "Where are you living?" and moving as tactfully as possible to the specific. "Have you thought about moving?" trying to ignore the voices in her head telling her it was horribly inappropriate to tote for business at a family celebration. All that had mattered, she told herself, were the follow-up phone calls when she was getting paid 1% of the purchase price. It was worth enduring looks of distaste. However, even at her most productive, she'd never been one of the high generators, like Guy, the owner of the company, or Wen Yi, who seemed to conjure up a never-ending stream of house buyers out of thin air. She didn't have what it took to pursue people to the bitter end. If she intuited that they were irritated or uncomfortable, she backed down. Paradoxically, this had at times worked in her favor. People liked that she was gracious. Well, some of them did. Others thought she was a nobody who wouldn't have the grit to get them a good deal and went instead to a swaggery wide boy like Craig or an overconfident posho like Henry. When she became pregnant with Daisy, she'd given it up. There was no reason not to. Nick earned enough for both of them, and she wanted to be a full-time mother. But the truth was, she'd been rescued by pregnancy. Her luck had been on the turn. She'd felt it slipping away from her. She'd got out before everyone else knew too. She had never planned to return, but a year ago, Nick hadn't got his annual bonus, and there was a sudden, terrifying hole in their finances. A huge block of money for mortgage payments and school fees simply wasn't there. After the shock wore off and the readjustment began, the thought of returning to work after a 6-year break began to seem exhilarating. Suddenly, she understood that the reason she was so unhappy was because she wasn't suited to being a stay-at-home mum. She loved Daisy and Verity to the point of pain, but perhaps outside stimulation was vital for her. Guy had welcomed her back, and as she showed up on her first day in her new trouser suit and high-heeled shoes, she was buoyant with pride, a useful member of her family. She mattered. But literally, within days, it became obvious that she could no longer do the job. She brought in no new business. The analysis she brought to bear on her life showed that she didn't go out as often as she used to before the kids, so there were fewer opportunities to make contacts. However, Nick had plenty of well-paid colleagues. She could have put the moves on them if she'd been committed enough. But it was impossible. She just couldn't talk to people anymore. She certainly couldn't hustle for business, and she couldn't articulate precisely why. The only language she could find was that it shamed her. She didn't want to bother people. She didn't want to draw attention to herself. She didn't want to ask for anything, because she couldn't endure the rejection. Because she had no other choice, she forced herself to try. But she couldn't strike the right note of breezy fun, usually with men, or trustworthy calm, women. Her true voice was buried beneath a mountain of rocks. Her treacherous mouth wouldn't say the right words, and when she tried to smile, she found that she twitched instead. She came across as pushy, strange, and desperate. She was embarrassing people. She'd thought returning to work would fix her, but it had made everything worse. After 4 months, she hadn't brought in a single new client, which was bad news for the company, but worse news for her because she had earned no commission. Guy was patient long past the point where any other boss would have told her to go, but she knew his forbearance couldn't go on indefinitely.